Patrick, great to see you again, man. Welcome back to Pop Alternative.
Petey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me back, man.
Last time there were a lot of, unknowns. We had a lot of questions about how Cobra Kai was going to officially wrap because it is the final episodes are finally, I'm not like out there, right? Which is crazy. I mean, take us through, we talked about that big kind of ending of part 2, but take us through, when you start getting the scripts for what happens afterwards with the Sekai Taikai kind of concluding and everything and Axel's kind of arc a little bit, like even before filming that stuff.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing is like, man, I can't believe they're continuing this tournament. This is crazy, but obviously the show must go on and they have to do it. I think it was really fun seeing how it was brought back to the Valley. I feel like that's where it all started. It feels like it has to end there. So that just makes a lot of sense. No, I think that was a fun. I really enjoyed how they brought it back there. And as far as the character goes, it was cool seeing how, like, there were two ways it could go. I mean, Axel could go the complete opposite direction and just turn into this really bad guy after the aftermath of what happened and sort of like spiral into I think he kind of takes the opposite direction where it sort of kicks him into this gear of like realizing maybe what he's been subjected to and kind of realizes it helps him like find who he is a bit more and gets him out of the toxic, bad situation that he's in with his sensei and eventually like breaking free from that.
Absolutely. And the fans are going to, it's going to be an emotional ride to see just how this series that we loved season after season on Netflix comes to an end, which is crazy. And I'm sure you're going to be asked a lot about that and the reactions and everything. But I want to know too, because we see, Axel in part 2 and part 3. And part 2, there's sprinkles of him being kind of this misunderstood character. Like you see, he's this big, if he's like the antagonist, right? And he's this tough guy, but then you see he might not be that person, right? He actually might be a good guy. You see that a lot more in part 3. And I'm wondering what that script to screen journey was like for you, seeing that kind of misunderstood component come out a little bit more.
Yeah, again, I was really happy when I read it because I was excited. I was just very happy that was the direction that I think ultimately it like makes him just more of a likable character. Like I wanted him to have a redemption arc. I wanted him to be not this bad guy. I wanted him to be. That's the direction I was hoping the character would go in. So I was really pleased with how the creators decided on that. And then as far as like putting it into play and like on the days and acting and playing the part. I mean, it was fun. It gave me more to work with, like it gave me more to think about in those big fights, like what he's thinking about more than just winning. That's something he's not accustomed to. He's generally like usually on the mat, it's like laser focused. And this time he's taking into account what Sam might be thinking about this situation. He has that moment with her where they kind of lock out. So it was really fun. It was more of a challenge for the character just to have a lot going on in those fights, in particular. And it was very fun, like helping bring him to that place where he eventually ends up standing up to Sensei Wolf.
And by the time this interview is out, the final 5 episodes of Cobra Kai will be streaming worldwide on Netflix. So that's pretty crazy. It's interesting, right? Because, Patrick Luwis is a storyteller. That's what you do, whether it's in a TV show or a film. Even like whether you act like a music video, it's all storytelling. You know what I mean? If you think about it, right? So I kind of want to know, because there's those films and TV shows that you grew up watching just kind of as a fan, right? That you like watching and you enjoy. But then there are those TV shows or films that make you want to be a, actor or filmmaker or storyteller, right? Big difference between
100%.
What were those for you specifically? What genre were those?
It was probably, I would say, the action and adventure genre, like sort of, your Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. To me, when I think about like perfect movies, like movies that transport you and make you literally, you feel like you're in a completely different world. And I mean, those movies, the impact those films had on people, I still will go back and watch them.
They're big too. Like, these are perfect. Of them are massive. They're big.
Yeah, no, like that's what 100%. I mean, to be able to tell a story like that or be a part of that, I think is like, that's ultimately, man, I really aspire to something like that. But then on a different note, I think comedy films have always appealed to me. Everything that like Seth Rogen and Judd Apatow and like Ben Stiller have done. I feel like they're just they're so fun and they kind of like I love to laugh. I love to be taken out of. I love to not try not to take life too seriously sometimes, and those films really help you do that. And I think they get people through hard times. So, and I've always just enjoyed that.
Mhm.
I think like naturally, that's what I've like preferred.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, there's a lot of films outside,
They're two different things though, because for me it's like I just loved watching comedies growing up, but then like getting into
Yeah.
those horror movies, that's what made me want to be a filmmaker. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I love horror too. I guess it really does span a lot of, there's so many genres that are great. Like suspenseful movies are awesome too, because it's kind of like, I feel like that's the one movie, especially nowadays with everyone's attention spans being so small, and because of, social media and TikTok and all that stuff. I feel like with a horror film or something that's really suspenseful, I feel like it grips you in a way that other films can't. Like I feel like I have to stay like I don't know if you've seen this is more of a thriller, but if you've been watching Severance, but like that's
Yeah,
the
of
type of show where I'm
course.
like I cannot look away for a second. I don't want to miss.
Dude, the wait
Yeah.
time of finding out what
Oh my
happened,
God.
insane.
Like one of the most epic endings to a series, like a first season of a
It
series.
was insane.
Wait,
And the wait time again, that's always
Oh my God.
well, it's
I
funny you
know.
mentioned. I did want to go back quickly because you mentioned those big kind of scale movies, the Lord of the Rings, Harry
Mhm.
Potter's, Rebel Moon, which you got to be part of that franchise. That has that kind of big action feel, these big world, space, and
Totally.
everything. I'm wondering from an acting perspective what it's like mindset wise when you show up on a set like that specifically, that is just the scale is really big. Are you just kind of in awe of the scale, or are you thinking about
Yeah.
the like, oh, this would be cool if like, I could continue working this genre, or like I'm wondering like what it would be like to be behind the camera on something like this. Do you think about a lot of those things when you're on something where the
Yeah. Oh
scale is
yeah.
really
Yeah.
big?
Totally. I mean, you think about everything that goes into it, you think about like all the moving parts, which is just insane how much is, everything from what the crew is doing to the people who are building these sets to what the filmmakers are doing, and then everything that happens after the fact. It's like it's pretty amazing. I think it's a nice time to be an actor where you kind of can just enjoy it all and be present and sort of be waiting to hear what someone tells you to do and do it. But it's also very inspiring if you're interested in, any other part of filmmaking. I think that was kind of like a masterclass being on that set in particular. But yeah, I think then the part, you have to just convince yourself to really like maybe not like downplay how big it is, but in some ways sort of just so you're not getting, super you don't want to be like intimidated by it,
Yeah, but I
right?
feel like
Like
sometimes it just happens so quick, and then you turn around and you're like, "Oh my goodness, it's a spaceship," but it's not really a spaceship.
right. No, it's true, but man, they make like for that one in particular. I mean, between the costumes and what they had built, I mean, it really felt so real.
Mhm.
All the work they put into it, but
Yep.
yeah.
Absolutely. We're going to get deep about the craft right now because I find it really interesting. Because whether it's like Cobra Kai or Rebel Moon or anything, right? You even mentioned like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. You
Mhm.
always have, in my opinion, and I think it just stems from just natural kind of like character growth and development, right? And relationships with characters and everything. You always have self reflection and soul searching and figuring things out with characters, right? You have more characters than others, like in Cobra Kai, like Axel and like Sam LaRusso and everything. They're figuring things out. They're doing self reflections, you know what I mean? And everything taking it day by day. I'm wondering from an acting storyteller perspective, what do you think about playing these characters that are doing self-reflection, that slice of life component? Is it more challenging? Is it fun? Because from a viewer perspective, right, they don't know they're lost, which I find that really interesting if you think
Yeah.
about it.
No, that's a really interesting question. And speaking of reflection, I'm sure you've noticed that I realize there's a disco ball on this window, and it's literally like, so excuse the crazy lights that are coming in
No
here.
problem. It's great. Production value, man.
But yeah, production value. I just want to give you guys a little something to, spice it up a little bit. But no, I think like it's what's cool about playing a character that's like going through a reflective, like reflecting it's kind of a weird thing where you're like reflecting as the character, but then in a way you're also kind of doing it as a person too, because you're also like trying to understand them. And I think like the only way you can really understand them is understanding yourself and how you'd be in that situation. So I think it's a great, like, I think acting helps you. What's so cool about it? One of the things that's cool about it is getting to understand yourself a little bit better and
Yep.
understanding other people more too, and being more empathetic with people because of that.
And kind of to add to that, I asked you about the acting, right? Now I want to talk more about kind of the collaborations and working with directors. There's a lot of directors out there now that are like genre bending, right? They're doing like comedy horror movies, they're doing
Sure,
kind of like
yeah.
the dark comedies, and I find it really fascinating and really fun. And I'm wondering is that if that really kind of excites you to specifically work with those, Osgood Perkins, those kind of directors that really are throwing the genre out the window these days, right? And throwing everything in
Oh
there. Like, what
yeah,
do
a
you think
hundred
about that
percent. Because
specifically?
they're making movies like you've never seen. You like don't know what to expect. Like Barbarian is such a good example of that. Like
Yep.
where you're like, this is kind of a creepy, like weird, strange film, but it's so good and it's like has all these really funny moments. Like when he's like measuring the crawl space that's like clearly where someone's been kept
Yeah.
prisoner. It's so funny. I love genre blending. I think it's fun. I also
Mhm.
think it's like I think it opens up just a whole new world for films too. I think like it's exciting for new filmmakers, and I think it just makes it more interesting as an actor instead of just being in like a strict, comedy or drama or like being able to blend that, I think is more. And actually, I think the shows and films that even before those pretty extreme examples of that kind of teeter on like this is a serious show, but it's almost like a Stranger Things where it's like there's a lot of comedy, but it also has this like
Yeah.
really intense element. I think that's a great, like, it just seems like so much fun. Good place to be
Sometimes
in.
it just happens kind of naturally too, right? Where certain elements get thrown in. Like, I mean, you've seen Adjoining, my short horror film. I mean, there are
Yes.
some moments where it's not supposed to be, but like there's some kind of like there might or might not be some like funny moments in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and I'm sure also when you're making it, you're not really sure what's going to play as a funny moment or what's like. I'm sure you were surprised in many ways, like when you screened it, you're like, oh, I didn't know that was going to be funny, but it just turned out to be that way, which is kind of great, and it's fun. It surprises you.
No, absolutely. Um, Getting back to Cobra Kai in regards to kind of like, what we were talking about a little bit. There were so many learning experiences that you're going to be able to take for future projects from being on that show and playing Axel on that show. And I know like you got to work with a lot of really cool. We talked about this a little bit in our first interview about the stunts and working with a lot of really amazing, people. But are there other specific like storytelling, like acting craft, like lessons that you learned on Cobra Kai that you might be able to take for future projects, Patrick?
Yeah, I'm sure there's stuff, I
Yeah.
mean, I think sorry, that sounded like, oh God, let me figure
Well,
it
no,
no.
it's because
I mean,
I didn't want to repeat because it's like my question's a little different. Because last time we talked about like you said it was like the stunts was a bit different like compared to other things, like it was crazy. And then like working
yeah,
with people, you always learn working with certain people, right? So
sure, yeah. No, no, I mean, you do. I think you like, you really, you're just pulling bits and pieces from every job you do. I mean, everything you go into, you're sort of like, you learn a little bit more about yourself. You learn a little bit more about like, oh, like it's okay to do that. And then you also get more comfortable. I think like part of the thing is, I think when you're very rigid and you're uncomfortable when you're starting out, you don't know, you're like too timid to like ask about a note or ask about like why hey, why is the character doing this here? I think I should probably be doing. So I think it's fun when it becomes, I think what Cobra Kai taught me is like, oh, this is going to be a collaborative thing moving forward with other projects. And like, it's okay to don't be scared to basically like go up and have a question or pull your scene partner aside and talk about something or discuss something. Whereas before, I think like showing up on a bigger set as a smaller part, it's sort of like, okay, I'm just gonna go stand where I was told to stand and kind of like not keep my mouth shut, but you know what I mean? Like wait until, because yeah, so I think it gave me a little bit more flexibility in that area, which taught me the importance of being able to do that, like make it a really collaborative thing.
absolutely. And you're a dude who's really into the craft like me and you love making things and you're really into like film and TV and I love that and everything. Are there things outside of that that you're really interested in hobby-wise specifically? And then let me know what it is
Yeah,
so that I
man.
can write something about it and then I can cast you and it'll be perfect.
That would be fantastic, man. I don't know why we didn't do this sooner. This is great. No, yeah, God, there's so much. I mean, like I've being physically active is like my
Yeah.
favorite. Pretty much anything
It
that's like,
is.
and playing a lot of tennis, been playing a lot of golf. which is kind of like my old man sports now because I feel like I've graduated from. I mean, I still play I'll still play basketball and soccer, and I love those sports, but been really into like racket sports recently and golf and just like just being outside. I like to fly fish. I haven't done it in a while, but I was very into that. Did it for several years, and I've been like itching to get out and go somewhere. But yeah, no, and cooking. I've been reading this guy, this British dude, Julius Roberts, who's like a really cool chef. He moved out to the countryside and he just like makes all this stuff from fresh produce in his hand. I'm just like, that sounds really appealing and cool. So man, there's so many like different lives that I'd like to live, you know?
So here's what I'm thinking. Psychological thriller about a dude who works at a restaurant as a chef and he goes fly fishing and things go crazy. How about that?
Starts to catch his own fish and to cook, and then something goes crazy.
Yeah, something like that.
I like it.
No, it's great.
We'll start writing it after this. So.
Absolutely. The final episodes of Cobra Kai are streaming now worldwide on Netflix. You did an amazing job as Axel, man, and I'm really happy for you. Congratulations. So great chatting with you again, man. Thanks so much for your time.
Oh my God, of course. It's always great chatting with you. Thanks for saying that. And thank you for the good questions. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Your Instagram account is just your name. People want to keep update with everything, right?
That's right. Yeah. Patrick D. Lewis.
Awesome. Well, this has been Pop Turner, youtube.com/PopTurner previous episodes. Till next time, this is Patrick and Petey Beats signing off.
Thanks, Petey.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.